Zoro isn't just getting stronger. And if that sentence already sounds wrong to you, good, because that means you're starting to see it. Most people think Zoro's story is simple. Train, fight, win, repeat. But that's not what Oda has been writing for over 25 years. Zoro's story is about realizing how small your world actually is, and what it costs to make it bigger. And once you see that, every single Zoro fight suddenly makes sense. Back in East Blue, Zoro thought he understood swordsmanship. He had beaten everyone. He had a reputation. He had confidence. And confidence is dangerous, because confidence feels like knowledge, until you meet someone who actually knows what they're doing. Mihawk didn't just beat Zoro, he exposed him. One small blade, no effort, no anger, just reality crashing down. Zoro didn't lose because he was weak. He lost because he didn't even know what he was missing. That fight wasn't about power, it was about scale. Zoro thought the East Blue was the world. Mihawk showed him it was a puddle. And that scar on Zoro's chest, that wasn't punishment. That was permission. Permission to begin for real. There is no school for becoming the world's greatest swordsman. No manual, no shortcut. Swordsmanship in One Piece is personal. It's about how you face your opponent, how you face yourself, and which lines you refuse to cross. That's why scars on the back mean shame, because turning away means you were never ready to stand there. Zoro chose to stand, and from that moment on, his journey stopped being about winning and started being about understanding. Zoro's first real test after Mihawk isn't some huge monster. It's Hachi. 6 arms, 6 swords. And Hachi says exactly what Zoro used to believe. 6 beats 3. More swords, more power. Simple. And that's the point, because Zoro beats Hachi while still injured from Mihawk, not by overpowering him, but by proving that numbers don't decide anything. This fight isn't about Hachi, it's about Zoro killing his old logic. Then comes Mr. One, a man who says, "No swordsman can defeat me," because his body is steel, infinite blades, infinite defense. And Zoro can't cut him, at first. So, what changes? Zoro stops forcing it. He listens. He feels the steel, the stone, the air. And suddenly, he understands something huge. The world isn't dead. Everything has presence. Everything has timing. And when Zoro finally cuts Mr. One, it's not because he swung harder. It's because he knew when to swing. That's the moment Zoro stops being just a guy with swords. That's when he starts becoming a swordsman. On Skypiea, Zoro faces someone who believes he's protected by God, a special weapon, a higher place, a higher right to win. And Zoro says something important. "I will never pray to your God." But here's the twist. Zoro wins not by rejecting belief, but by finding his own. Step by step, he develops the 36, the 72, and finally the 108-pound phoenix. And that number matters, not because it sounds cool, but because it represents letting go, of fear, of doubt, of unnecessary weight. Zoro doesn't overpower his enemy here. He simplifies himself. And that's why it works. Then comes Kaku, a monster of pure training. Perfect body, perfect techniques, no wasted movement. Zoro can't beat him by playing fair, so he doesn't. He digs deeper, and what comes out is terrifying. Azura isn't a power-up, it's Zoro choosing a darker road, a version of himself fueled by pride, anger, and refusal to lose. This isn't peaceful growth, this is obsession, and from here on out, Zoro's path is no longer clean. Ryuma, not flashy, not loud. One strike, one decision. That's what a real sword fight looks like. And after winning, Zoro doesn't celebrate. He says the sword is still too much for him. That matters, Because even after defeating a legend's body, Zoro knows he's not there yet. That humility is why he later kneels before Mihawk, not as a defeated man, but as someone who finally understands the distance. Hyozo thinks he's the greatest swordsman in his world. Zoro has heard that before. And when Hyozo attacks from behind with poison blades, Zoro calls him a frog. Because Zoro has already been shown the ocean. Hyozo hasn't. And the difference shows instantly. This fight isn't close, because experience changes everything. Pika isn't strong, but this moment matters more than people realize. Before cutting him, Zoro explains what a world is. Not for the enemy, for himself. Back in East Blue, his strongest move was 3,000 worlds. That was everything he knew back then. Now, that number explodes. Not because Zoro's muscles got bigger, but because his world did. He has traveled, he has lost, he has listened, and now his attacks reflect that. This is Zoro showing how far he's come, without even saying it. King tells Zoro the same thing everyone else did. You can't beat me. Different reason, same excuse. But King isn't the real problem. Enma is. A sword that doesn't care if Zoro lives or dies. A sword that takes everything if you let it. And this is where Zoro's journey finally makes sense. He doesn't fight Enma. He accepts it. He stops holding back. And for the first time, Zoro doesn't resist the weight he carries. He becomes compatible with it. And that's why he wins. Not because he conquered hell, but because he stopped running from it. Zoro started thinking he knew everything. He was proven wrong. He spent years learning how wrong he was. And even now, he still says it's his weakness. That matters, because Zoro never believes he's finished. And that's why he'll reach Mihawk. Not because he wants the title, but because he understands what it takes to deserve it. Zoro isn't chasing strength. He's chasing clarity. And that's what makes him terrifying. And this is where most people stop. They look at Wano. They see Enma, they see King, and they think, that's it, Zoro arrived. No, that's not arrival. That's commitment. Here's something important. Most strong characters in One Piece grow because they want to win. Zoro grows because he can't accept lying to himself. Every time Zoro loses, he doesn't cope. He doesn't justify it. He doesn't blame the situation. He internalizes it. That's why his losses shape him more than his victories. Mihawk didn't just beat him once. Mihawk lives in Zoro's head. Every swing, every stance, every decision. Zoro isn't fighting random enemies. He's constantly measuring himself against a future version he hasn't earned yet. People talk about Luffy's promise, but Zoro made one too. And it's quieter, heavier, more dangerous. I will never lose again. Not to others, to himself. That promise is why Zoro accepts pain without complaint, why he carries injuries he doesn't need to, why he steps forward when stepping back would be smarter, because backing down would mean betraying that moment at Baradier, the moment he realized how far away the goal really was. Have you noticed something strange? Zoro almost never talks about being the best. Other characters say it for him, because Zoro understands something most people don't. Talking about the peak doesn't get you closer to it. Only walking does. That's why even after Wano, even after King, even after Enma, Zoro still says the problem is him. Not the sword, not the enemy, not fate. Him. And that mindset is terrifying. That scar from Mihawk, it never healed. Not emotionally, because it's not supposed to. It's a reminder, a checkpoint, a warning sign carved into his body that says, you are not there yet. And as long as Zoro can still feel that scar, he knows he's still on the path. Here's the thing people get wrong about Mihawk. Mihawk isn't just someone Zoro has to beat. Mihawk represents the standard, the calm, the precision, the control. Zoro isn't trying to overpower Mihawk. He's trying to become someone Mihawk would take seriously again. Not with a knife this time, but with respect. Zoro's way isn't clean. It's not healthy. It's not balanced. He gives up comfort, safety, sometimes even direction. That's why he gets lost, not as a joke, but because he's always walking forward, even when the map disappears. Zoro's strength comes at a price, and that price is everything else. So what happens now, after Enma, after King, after Wano? Simple. The margin disappears. From here on out, Zoro isn't fighting people below Mihawk. He's fighting people near him. And near the top, mistakes don't hurt. They end you. That's why Zoro's growth from now on won't look flashy. It'll look controlled, sharp, quiet. And that's when you should be scared. Picture this. Zoro standing in front of Mihawk. Again. No shouting, no rage, no desperation. Just silence. Two swordsmen who understand exactly what this moment costs. And when they clash, it won't be about power. It'll be about whether Zoro has finally become someone who belongs there. Zoro didn't become strong because he wanted to win. He became strong because he refused to stay ignorant. And that's why, one day, Mihawk won't be teaching him anymore. He'll be answering him.